My first guest is one of the world's leading experts on the Middle East. He's professor at Middle East Studies at Princeton University in the United States and covers the region very closely. I appreciate you joining us, Professor Bernard Haykel there. Thank you very much. Your first response to what has happened in the last 48 hours, in particular, the volley of airstrikes that have hit Beirut, the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah and several other senior commanders of the Hezbollah. Is this end game Hezbollah, Dr. Haykel, or would you see now an inevitable escalation of this conflict?
So first, I think, let me just say it's nice to be with you. I think everyone has been surprised at Israel's ability to penetrate the Hezbollah and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran through its intelligence and communications capacities. And no one could have predicted this devastating set of attacks that would basically wipe out the leadership of Hezbollah. And not just the first rank, but the second rank leadership as well. So I do not think that this is the end of Hezbollah. However, Hezbollah is the crown jewel of Iran's non-state actors, the proxies that it has subsidized and trained and armed throughout the Middle East, from Iraq to Syria to Lebanon and Yemen. And Iran will make sure that Hezbollah survives. How Iran does this is not clear. But no one would have been able to predict the success of Israel these last few weeks.
But are we going to see an escalation of the conflict? Because if what you're saying happens, will Iran be drawn into this battle more directly? From using the Hezbollah as a proxy, could now Iran get more directly involved, Professor Haykel?
No, I don't think Iran is interested in a direct battle. It's very clear that the Iranian president, who came to the United Nations just a few days ago, made clear that he wants to de-escalate because the Iranians realize that if this becomes an all-out war between Iran and Israel, America, the United States, will come into the battle on the side of Israel, and Iran will be devastated militarily. So Iran does not want to attack or get involved directly. It wishes to do so through its proxies and through the non-state actors that it has created, and the coordination between these various non-state actors. So you see that the Houthis in Yemen are now helping by launching missiles at Israel, helping Hezbollah, that is, and helping the Hamas in Gaza. But effectively, Israel has more or less decimated, if not destroyed, Hamas militarily, not politically, and has done something quite similar, not quite as devastating, to Hezbollah.
Let's talk about the Hezbollah for a moment. This force of which very little is perhaps known. Do you believe that given what has happened in the last 72 hours, Hezbollah itself will find it difficult to revive from these setbacks? Or is the fear that they could hit back with even greater intensity? Can Hezbollah actually regroup? Is that a fear that they could actually get even more intense in their attacks on Israel?
Well, it'll definitely take a while to regroup, but Hezbollah has very, ballistic missiles that have precision-guided warheads. Those are still under the control of Iran. So I think whatever Hezbollah does will be at the instructions of Iran. And so far, they have not used these ballistic missiles against Israel. So that means that the Iranians still control Hezbollah's decision-making. The other thing about Hezbollah that should be noted by your listeners and watchers is that Hezbollah is not popular in Lebanon. I mean, there is a large percentage of the population of Lebanon, mainly Sunni Muslims and Christians, as well as some Shiites, who do not like the fact that Hezbollah does Iran's bidding and has dragged Lebanon into a war that most Lebanese, if not all Lebanese, do not want with Israel.
You're saying most Lebanese do not want a war with Israel, but do you believe Israel therefore could use this opportunity now to launch a ground offensive in Lebanon of the kind that they've done with the Hamas in Gaza? Is that a real possibility now, Professor Haykel?
I mean, it's a possibility. I think it would be a big mistake. if Israel does this. The idea is that if Israel takes a buffer zone, controls a buffer zone in Lebanon, it could then negotiate that buffer zone, bringing in the Lebanese army rather than Hezbollah in that area, and then have calm and peace on its border. I think that's the logic of an Israeli invasion. They've done this. This would be the fourth, if the Israelis invade, this would be the fourth invasion of Lebanon since beginning in 1978, then 1982, then 2006. And each time Israel has done this, it has not achieved its strategic goals. So I think it would be a mistake. And so far, I think Israel realizes that it's had remarkable success with its air campaign and its intelligence attacks. I'm not sure a ground campaign is necessary. Although that's still open. That's still an open question.
The other key question, Professor Heikel, is the growing division seemingly in the Arab world over how this is playing out. The so-called axis of resistance led by Iran that includes countries like Yemen, the Houthis, the Hezbollah, the proxies on one side, and then you have Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Sunni countries that perhaps do not want to see the Islamic radicalism spread far and wide in the manner that Iran would like to. Are we going to now see an even greater divide within the Arab world over what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a division in the Arab world, and it's a division that's between so-called moderate states that are allied with the United States and states that form part of this so-called axis of resistance. And there's also a divide between Sunnis and Shi'is as well, with the exception of Palestine, where the Sunnis, the Sunni Hamas has allied with Iran. The other Sunnis have not allied with Iran, and many of them are privately quite happy at seeing the devastation that has been inflicted on Hezbollah lately.
One final question, Professor Heikel. How are you going to therefore see the next few months panning out? We will complete 1 year since the Israeli offensive after the terror attack against Hamas. Now we see fresh fronts opening up, the latest in Lebanon. Are we going to see any solution, Professor Heikel, in the near term at all? Do you see any kind of de-escalation?
I don't see a solution, but I see the possibility of de-escalation. That's possible.
But what would be the trigger for a de-escalation? Do you believe a de-escalation could take place post the US presidential November elections? Is that the next big moment to look out for? Because there are many who believe Israel now sees this as a moment to go ahead, a tipping point for them to simply crush their enemies that lie around them, take advantage of what has happened in recent days and weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the Israelis are definitely on a roll, and they will continue to weaken their enemy. But it's also clear that the Americans are not likely to put any pressure on the Israelis at all to stop. And I think that the election results, whether it's Vice President Harris or President Trump, either of them are unlikely to put pressure on Israel to stop their attacks on Iran's proxies. Remember also that the Americans are fighting Iran's proxies in Yemen, for example. So Israel and America is on the same side in very many of these conflicts.
Professor Heikel, for joining us and giving us the big picture. Appreciate you joining me there from Princeton University.